Hello, everybody, and welcome back to that Milan podcast. Martino Puccio, Matt Santangelo alongside you guys. We're going to have a quick one here just to go over the Empoli match. Wanted to give our thoughts on that. There's a quick turnaround for Feyenoord versus Milan midweek in the Champions League, so we'll be able to preview that as well. But we just wanted to discuss yesterday's match against Empoli, which was pretty much a chaotic one, Matt. So, again, guys, like, subscribe, comment on your thoughts on the match. This one was a very abysmal first half. I think a good amount had to do with backups playing in the wing positions, midfield being incredibly tired, and the weather conditions not being great. Again, we saw the limitations of Tammy Abraham and some of the players here, but there were some good things to see. I thought Kyle Walker looked very sound once again, put in another decent performance. I thought him and Teo were playing fine. The fullbacks were good. Tomori and Pavlovic had one of their quote-unquote stinker sort of games. I think they were making some risky plays, exposing them, and really just putting them at risk for a loss. Obviously, we'll get into Tomori's situation, but just that first half as a whole, really kind of frustrating for Milan. Obviously, should have been given the red card, but Kyle Walker was fouled. That not being is just insane. We'll get into the other, like how Santi gets a yellow after a VAR review, even though that's not even supposed to be allowed. Because if that's the case, why wasn't the defender given a yellow at least after the Kyle Walker non-call? It just doesn't make sense. It was illogical. So, yeah, your thoughts on the first half, sir?
Yes, I tend to agree with your assessment of how things played out. I mean, obviously the climate, the conditions weren't ideal.
Yeah.
Between that and playing a team away that, look, obviously are going to be scrappy. They're going to try to take a point off. That's basically, in my opinion, what they kind of went in there. The classic case of let's maybe try to hit them on the counter, but if we can kind of steal a sloppy point, we'll take that. But that has to be in Milan's DNA, right? You don't want it to make it a common theme, but this is something we discussed with Torgrud, right, in our previous episode, which you guys can obviously go check out, where we discussed the market and a couple other things. Is you don't want to make this a theme, you don't want to make this a common occurrence, but I do think that Milan winning in a fashion like this shows a little character. Again, you rainy, sloppy, not your best performance. You rotated out a couple players in anticipation of the Feyenoord game. You had obviously Rafa, Pulisic, and Santi come off the bench, which obviously shows the firepower we have. But the fact that we're able to still, despite some of the things that you just mentioned with Fikayo and Pavlovic having, a game that pales in comparison to the previous couple games they've had, and you're still winning, you still won the game 2-0 with a clean sheet.
And they had no shots on target.
And they had no shots on target. Like, I'll take that any day of the week. And that's why the context of reviews like this that we provide and many other creators provide is very important, because people on the surface might say no shots on goal, 2-0 win away. Milan, they never even were under any pressure, or they played a clean game. And I think that was far from the case. Yes. But again, if you are able to play a match like this and rest some players in the process and then still get those contributions on the back end like we did, I'll take that any day of the week. So a 2-0 result, which, by the way, as I texted Martino, that I got the prediction right. So I'll kind of pat myself on the back there.
You and Torgard both had the same prediction there. Milan definitely would have gotten 4 if they played.
They should have.
Yeah. But again, you guys had nailed it. There were so many like non-foul calls within that first half too. There was 17-10. I just think the Paireto's lack of control of the match really ruined a lot of the flow. Again, I don't think it was necessarily poor from Gimenez and Musa. There weren't great performances, but again, when guys are playing on a shortened week, out of position, and more is sort of asked of them in that situation, you can't have too high of expectations. I thought they did okay, but obviously the quality and difference between them and the substitutes that came on. And they were quick hooks, and those were something that I pretty much asked for. But before we get into that, I just want to mention this Kyle Walker non-red card was just egregious. First of all, it could have ended his season to begin with. The fact that it came in that late, VAR doesn't even consider intervening with that was just a huge injustice. Again, I'm not saying like get rid of VAR or anything. We never advocate that, but just the sheer lack of like consistency within the calls in this half made no sense to me. Zhao getting a yellow just for that flop was just. I mean, listen, I've seen way worse flops not been giving a yellow. I thought that was a bit much to give it to him. So I really wasn't a fan of that. And then again, Tomori was on that yellow. And Conceição, let's face it, just the one poor game in terms of substitutes against Inter, he really turned it around in this one because putting the substitutes on completely changed it. He had a quick hook with this. He got some rest in for some of his guys. He gave Tammy Abraham that opportunity after the brace against Roma, but ultimately he knew that they needed 3 points and they had to put on their best players. So Gimenez, Fofana, and Tammy were all subbed off. Obviously, Pulisic slotting in to where Musa was. Musa moves back. And again, Santi came in and Rafa. Santi and Rafa coming on is just the clear night and day, huge difference. I know Pulisic came on. It's not like for like with Fofana, but Pulisic working hard off the ball, Matt, really in helping create these 2 goals was sort of the difference. And again, Rafa, great finish with his header. Santi also had a great finish. We'll get into those sides of things, but Pulisic looked far more refreshed coming on in this one than I thought he did in recent performances where he was starting. He looked a lot more lively. I don't know what you thought.
I'd agree. I mean, I think, certain players can adapt, right, to getting that start, but maybe they also just need to kind of come off the bench and see that game a little bit differently and see
Yeah.
where they can anticipate and exploit certain things. And, Pulisic was doing a lot of the things that we haven't been accustomed to seeing from him, right? He likes to push the ball out wide. He likes to bring the ball to the touchline, and he likes to make those crosses into the box, the back post, which is what he
Yeah.
did for the Rafa goal. And just getting that little jolt of energy, that impact from him in the attack. Obviously, it's night and day. That when you bring on guys like Rafa and Pulisic, I mean, this is what you come to expect. These are starting players. These are 2 of your best players in the team, the 2 best contributors as far as like goals and assists this season as well. So it's
Yes.
really not surprising, but I think it's very encouraging that you can bring these players on, and in an instant they can tip the scales and they can get this game to being in your advantageous
Happens with
position.
Inter a good amount.
Yeah, it happens with with the team. That's the mark of a good team, but that's also the
Quality
mark of a
team,
very
right?
quality
Yeah.
player. And I thought Pulisic was fantastic in this game. I know the assist for the Jimenez goal was a little bit more of like a chaotic kind of like
Yeah, yeah.
collision.
It
The
wasn't
ball
like he
just
was
kind of
playing
trickles
him
over to
through and knew
Jimenez.
he had a chance. Yeah, he just
Yeah,
had to
he
get
knew he
rid
just
of
kind
it.
of had
Yeah.
to dump it off to Jimenez into his general area, and then
Right.
obviously Jimenez did the rest with a great finish. But Pulisic, the past couple games, hasn't been his normal Pulisic stuff, but this game in this short window of opportunity to make an impact, he did just that. So very encouraging, especially after the Roma game, which I don't think he played that well. I thought he could have did a little bit more in that first half, but all credit to him for adjusting and to getting those 2 assists. They were crucial today or yesterday.
Yeah. And that was like the big performance. I know I kind of did just skip over out of order with this, but Tomori's red card. I mean, just there was a couple things here. I saw replays of Kyle Walker keeping him on side or Lorenzo Colombo, our good young
Mhm.
player, offside. Just a quick thing on him. I thought he did a fantastic job in this situation of drawing that foul. So kudos to him. Like I think he perfectly understood it. Thick, I have no idea what's going on in his mind here. And I know the term gets tossed around a good amount with some of our players, but Bozo Gene, I mean, bro, like I have no idea what he's doing. Colombo isn't that quick of a player that Fick has to come in and chop with that sort of tackle like that. I know he falls in love, and it's very easy to get into bad habits when you're a great athlete like that. That you think your recovery speed can allow you to make those sort of tackles all the time, but the timing is always very difficult. And Fick really didn't have to do that. I think that ultimately ended up costing him, especially on a yellow card. I expect more from him in a moment like that because obviously it was scoreless. We had just put on the substitutes. That's around the 55th minute when he gets that. Milan were already drawing. We don't need you to put us in a
Yeah.
situation where we're now down a man and hoping to salvage something from this situation when we need 3 points. It's not okay to just
Mhm.
take the draw regardless of performance, weather, and where they're playing. I thought this was very naive from Fick. It's going to cost them for the next match
Verona.
that they're playing. Verona, thank you.
So yeah,
And yeah, so I mean, again, positive performances from Fick, and then you see this, and it's just that's just that sort of frustration that you get with him and some of these other players of like, where's these string of like great games? At least give us 5 in a row. And again, no player's perfect. You're gonna see mistakes, but something like this from Tomori was very inexcusable.
it was, and I think yeah, you made a great point. You know, a lot of times the better athlete will try to lean on just being the better athlete versus using the sense and awareness and understanding of where you're at in that moment to say, okay, like this guy's not
Yeah.
going to beat me for pace. I'm faster than him. He's what is he going to cut it on his left and curl one far post? If he does that,
He wasn't
God
that
bless,
close
more
to the
power to
box,
you.
right? He was
He did.
pretty far out.
Colombo did have a chance to hit off the crossbar, so I can't just completely diminish the
When
ability
Colombo
of
Colombo
Colombo to
hit
bring it
straight to
that
the
left
ball,
foot.
it's pretty
But at
impressive.
the same time, given where he was in proximity to the goal, I mean, if you kind of just stand your ground and you kind of keep the game in front of you and keep the player in front of you,
Yeah.
you not only give your goalkeeper that opportunity to say like, all right, like I can kind of get myself into position if he shoots, but you can also give maybe your defenders that sort of retreat time to
Yes.
get back into a shape and to provide support. So very clumsy, very kind of reckless in that moment. I mean, other
Absolutely.
better teams will take advantage of the
Capitalize.
fact that they are up a player for that substantial amount of time. Thankfully, it's Empoli.
It
And
wasn't that much of a substantial amount of time. It was 10 minutes.
I
So
know, I know, I know.
you
But I'm
wanna you
saying like
wanna yeah, you're right, you're right. You're
mostly
so right.
other teams won't give you a red
Also,
card in return. You know,
so
like a starter team.
do you wanna hop into that one? I don't know
Yeah, we
if it
can.
reminded you of this, but I tweeted out on the Milan pod account of when Beckham got sent off in the World Cup against Argentina.
Yeah,
The
yeah, yeah.
the red card committed here was just sort of this sneaky, like, let me kick you in the shin or knee, and get away with it. And listen, Santi was holding him up, but that's just sort of that physical play when you get a ball sent up. It wasn't anything malicious from Santi. Couple things with this. One, yes, that's a red card. You can't just be kicking somebody like that and with the intention of just hitting them. There's no play involved there. The play was over. Secondly, when the review goes to VAR for a red card, you cannot retroactively give a yellow card. That is a well-known rule. That's also what we had seen earlier with the non-Kyle Walker one. So not only did they refuse to give a card in general, they give Santi a yellow card here in the 65th minute. So this was before any of the goals, right? So then we go back to even strength. At that point, it felt really good in terms of where Milan were, because I thought they were still creating pretty decently despite being down a man.
Mm.
They looked like they were inventive and had ideas far more threatening. Um, and then we saw that goal from Pulisic to Rafa. But I mean, this red card was a gift for us. Uh, make no mistake about it. Regardless of it being a red card for sure, like you said, teams are not going to gift you shit like this. This was a
Yeah.
gift from the gods, basically, that Milan were able to get back to even strength here.
Yeah, I think it's also, kind of, you could, maybe I'm over exaggerating here, but, you make the point of Jimenez, being a physical player, willing to assert himself into those sort of battles and instances to win fouls and to when you put yourself in those positions where you want to play a physical game and you want to get physical and play back to goal and hold up play and all these sorts of things, you're almost a little bit of like an agitator, an agitative forward. And
Yeah,
I maybe that's something I'm just coining now, but I'm a firm believer in, individuals in sport in general who have that sort of characteristic or personality where they can kind of be a little bit of an annoyance to a defender and they can sort of trigger something that just pisses you off. We've
yeah,
seen
yeah.
it countless
Totally.
times in basketball. We've seen it countless times in football where it's just one of those things where the guy just kind of gets in your head, gets in your face, and all of a sudden it
Mm.
forces you to make a penalty or a flag or whatever. And that's
Yeah,
all
yeah.
he's asking for. That's all he's looking for.
He's baiting
So
him.
there wasn't anything cynical or dirty with what Gimenez did. I mean, I know they were reviewing it, and it looked as though that Gimenez was actually the one that was kind of like pulling him down.
Yeah, yeah.
But it didn't look like there was anything to that foul that was like that warranted like a card or a red card or
Yeah.
anything. And then it's the action off the back of that, which is the kick, and it looks like he kind of hits him in like the general
It's
groin
just
stomach area. And
Stupid.
it's like, okay, well, fine. Like if I'm able to create this sort of opportunity for myself, now we're back to level 10-10. And now the game is open for Milan. And that is exactly what they want because they know they can kind of put guys forward. They know, to your point, and we just been discussing this, it was a must-win game. You needed 3 points. So I'm glad that we were aggressive and we were like, okay, well, we can't tie this game. Like this is not the game to tie. Put
Oh,
guys
yeah.
forward, Rafa, Pulisic, be the aggressor, and let's kill this game off. And that's exactly what they did.
Yeah, and we'll get into this headed goal. I just thought this was just such a nice finish from Rafa. The cross itself, too, to just find him. Kudos to the 2 best players on the team. They just did their job within this situation. Again, Rafa coming on and really just like making another impact here. And just I'm really satisfied again with the front 3. We had discussed it last episode about the talent that is now there. So in general, I loved it, and I thought it was a great finish by them, and it was just really nice to see another flash of what we could potentially expect. We've only saw it partially in that match against Roma. We saw it partially again against Empoli. Milan just racking up the points and advancing to a semifinal because of it, and soon enough we'll get to see it for a full 90. Real quick, just before I transition to Pulisic and Santi, your kind of thoughts on João overall for this game?
I thought he was okay. I thought there were a couple moments that he looked like he was pressing a little bit. He was trying to do too much, with the ball at his feet. And, in some way you like that because you like a player that is trying to make an impact. And I know this is his second game. This is his first start. So I think it's natural for a player to want to make an impression, especially look, they're competitors. They're on the same team, but he's seeing Santi, he's seeing some of these other players making an impact, and he's trying to kind of like say, like, all right, like I'm gonna try to one up him in a way, in a friendly way. And I think there were a couple moments where he fell in love a little bit too much with a dribble or the extra trying to get by
You
a
can
guy
tell.
versus making the simple pass and just kind of keeping that pressure into the final third. But I thought he was fine. I mean, I think that there were a couple chances that he probably could have did better to keep the ball on frame and to at least test the keeper. There was one he hit wide to the
Yes,
left
yeah,
side.
that one frustrated me.
Yeah, that one I
Yeah,
think that
he had
has
more
to be
time than
on
he thought.
goal. But
Mm.
overall, I mean, it's tougher for attackers. The space isn't maybe as apparent in
I
Serie A
mean,
as it is in other leagues. So I
that's
think in that sense, he's still kind of feeling his way around the team. But again, got to keep in mind the conditions weren't great. The field pitch looked terrible. It was chewed
yeah,
up. It was
that's
sloppy.
I
I mean,
thought my
again, yeah,
sorry, I was just gonna add to what you were saying. It was like he also wasn't playing with the best of attackers.
right.
He's got
Like,
Gimenez his left, Musis to his right, and Tammy. Listen,
yeah,
Tammy's either good or Tammy's like sort of non-existent. That was more the non-existent Tammy. So, yeah, you just wrap up your thought on him, or just you want to
yeah. No,
quickly
that's
also.
That's pretty much it. I mean, I thought the performance was fine. It's his first start. I'm just, intrigued to see, what these players can do on the field all at once for an
Gimenez.
entire match from the start, right? Someone snipped their performance and it was like
Yeah,
you kind of fall in love with like the names that you have to put out there,
yeah,
but it's like I want to see what these guys can do from the opening whistle and how they
yeah.
can kind of really control the game and the tempo and the flow.
Real quick before we go to Santi and wrap up. Bonetti says that João Felix is the most technically gifted player since Ronaldinho. Do you agree with that? For Milan, to have played at Milan, obviously.
I mean, I think Rafa would have something to say about that, right? Like,
He did. He did, so
did he?
Bonetti
So he
saying
basically said, like, yes, I took that into consideration. Obviously,
yes. Bonetti took it into consideration, and he thinks João. I kind of get where he's coming from, but I don't know. Hard to agree with
I'm
it.
sure he got.
Anyways,
I'm sure he had a. I'm sure he had a lot of very respectable comments in his.
I think he was saying that Rafa's dribbling is great, but a lot of it is based on his physical ability, whereas Zhao is a little bit more technical with the ball at his feet. And I kind of get where he's coming from. I just think Rafa just sometimes you see him do things like technical wise, and you're like, holy shit, like that's insane.
Yeah.
Like the assist against Inter in the Super Copa, like that sort of assist to hit it like that. That's technical ability. I think that's just really impressive. Anyways, Santi, First goal for Milan, obviously got an assist in his first debut. Comes off, again, these are debuts off the bench. He's getting multiple goal contributions. Hey, listen, by the way, we have a thing in basketball, big basketball fan. You draw a charge, you get credit for it. You get somebody sent off, you deserve credit for that too. It doesn't, like you were saying, you're baiting someone into being an idiot and making a mistake like that. That's a bonus for the team. I had tweeted it out that just seeing a player, I don't know if you feel this way. Every time I see one of our strikers the past 10 years or something, this includes Giroud, probably not Zlatan involved because he's a great ball striker, but almost every single striker that we've sort of had, you feel iffy anytime they strike the ball or take a chance. Santi here, you're like, wow, that was a wonderful finish. And a really nice first goal for him. As you had mentioned, Pulisic really just had to dump it off for him, and Santi he took it incredibly well. Very patient with it, didn't rush the shot, took his time, measured it, and the finish was brilliant on another former Milan player, Divas Vasquez. So that pretty much put the game to bed at that point. And again, this just overall performance from him, we saw flashes from it. Santi hasn't looked like he's missed a beat. We'll see what happens if he'll get the start. I think there's a good chance he starts Wednesday against his former club. So your kind of thoughts on his performance, and then we'll wrap up here.
Santi look good. I mean, I think that in matches like this where, again, space isn't always afforded quite easily. I think the fact that he's able to take one of his very early chances that he's had in a Milan shirt and show off what he's capable of doing. Right, that's a clean finish. That's not some sort of cheapie.
Yes.
And the fact that he's able to kind of take that ball in, put it on his left, which is obviously his favorite left foot, and curl that in. A left-footed strike always just looks nicer too. On TV as well, and it was a great strike, and I'm super happy for him. I think I mentioned this when he arrived, and I'm going to keep saying it. Strikers are a very fickle position; they're a fickle role because, especially when you're new to a league like this, you can go through a spell 4, 5, 6 games where you don't score, and all of a sudden everyone's saying like this guy's a flop or this guy's not going to adapt. He's a fluke. We waste yada yada yada. So for him to kind of get a couple contributions already to kind of like settle that initial nerve that might come with a new move, I thought it was very important. This isn't to say that he might not go through a spell where he doesn't score a goal, but truthfully, even in this game, if he didn't score a goal and he still was the one that he did draw the red card, there's ways to contribute. We've seen it many times where a striker will have that great hold up play and he'll create that avenue or that lane for someone else to be the guy. So I think that Santi has that capability in him, but for him to get this goal opportunity, and obviously it was a great occasion for him because it put the game to bed. He was celebrating with a lot of his teammates, and in the post-match as well, they're sharing things on social media. So it's a generally great positive vibe for him and a lot of the newer signings we've made. So great goal. Hoping this is just a sign of things to come, but fantastic finish. And I'm having to kind of, I don't know if you saw this, I posted it on my Twitter, but it was like a picture of Pulisic and Santi, like arm around the shoulder type thing. And it's kind of like poetic because obviously they're big rivalries on the international level. But everyone in the comments of that post that Santi posted was kind of looking at it and being like, I'll play for Mexico to Pulisic, joking around and all these sorts of things. So some good banter. And, it's great to see. I think this was one of the final thoughts I had too before I went to bed and, kind of digested the result was, I know it's early days with this new group and, obviously the coach as well, but the general feeling from an outsider, it feels like it's a healthier, more like upbeat group. And that kind of fractured feeling that we felt as fans weeks and months ago, it feel like it's like dissipated, whatever the word is, but like, it feels like it's kind of like the locker room is healthier now. It does feel like this is a more like together, unified group.
It seemed like they got rid of some bad eggs from reports and insubordinate players. Listen, I'm very happy with it. And again, I think probably the most important thing to take away, 0 shots on target allowed. The game was completely different once our best players were on the pitch. They picked up the 3 points, and that's what really matters because, again, teams like Lazio have won, Atalanta have won, Juventus have won. We'll see what happens with a club like Bologna. They're about to kick off against Lecce, and then Inter and Fiorentina play once again
And we
on
got
Monday.
Verona next week, which, by the way, they just conceded, what, 4 to 5 goals to Atalanta, and they're head and
Retegui
shoulders.
had 3 in the first half.
Yeah, and they're head and shoulders the worst defensive team in Serie A, I think by
I swear
10
to
or
God,
11
man. I
goals.
swear to God. Swear to
So,
God.
I mean, again, like, things are kind of shaping up now where Milan can be in a very good position, and things are made easier when you just control simply the game in front of you and you're not scoreboard watching every single time. So if Milan can just kind of get into a rhythm where they're just running off,
This is the
steady
stretch, as
wins
we mentioned many
versus
times.
these teams that they simply should be handling, no questions asked, you kind of throw it back over to these other teams and you're asking Juventus, you're asking Bologna, some of these teams that have been flawed this year, to say, okay, we got to go out there and get a win. So Milan have to be the aggressor. Continue to stockpile
Agreed.
wins. You have that game in hand against Bologna coming up in a couple weeks,
Yep.
which is obviously going to be huge in the conversation for Europe. So just keep it pushing, guys. 3 points is really all we can ask for at this point, and we got it against Empoli.
Yep. You can follow Matt at Matt_Santangelo at AC Milan Bros. You can obviously follow myself at Martino Puccio at Martino_Puccio on Instagram. Again, subscribe and follow That Milan Podcast at That Milan Pod. Trying to get more of you guys on there as audio listeners as well. Remember, you guys can listen to us Spotify, Apple, all your favorite audio platforms. Obviously on here as well. There's been so many of you joining us on the road to 6K. Again, more content coming very soon. We might be doing something tomorrow for the Champions League midweek match. Other than that, any other final comment there before we end?
Just want to thank everybody for continuing to support us, liking, subscribing, as Martino mentioned. Show us some love on Spotify. Leave us some good ratings. That also helps us boost this platform and also helps it get out to more people, which is obviously the ultimate goal because we want to grow this community with you guys. So thank you guys so much, and we truly do appreciate all the support.
And again, new L3 U.S. Men's National Team fans, everyone be nice and also support us because big Milan support group here. But again, thank you guys so much. Take care.